Hey everyone, welcome back to the Combo Couch. And right now I am with James Elia. James is a delegate for California, and he is here with me today to discuss the inner workings of the California Democratic Party and where we go from here from these elections. Thank you, James, for being here with me.
Hey, no problem, fam. Good to hear from you, Fiorella.
Good to hear from you, Wildling. So
can
just want to start
I
off
just
by
can I just say that story real quick?
yes, tell the audience that
So
story.
fam, I'm coming down the escalator from voting at the California Democratic Party convention, and as I come down, I see Fiorella standing at the bottom of the escalator, completely unaware as to my surrounding. So I get down at the bottom of the escalator. I tap her on the shoulder. I give her a big hug and pick her up and go, "Hey, Fiorella, good to see you." I set her down and she's visibly just confused. And it takes her a second. She goes, "Oh, James. Oh, thank God it's you. I thought it was a wildling from Game of Thrones."
Because
And
you're wearing like cutoffs, like you're not even wearing like sleeves, and you have all these like socialist things on you, and you have this beard, and you look like you don't belong next to everybody else who's wearing like suits and shit. Like it's the funniest thing. It's the funniest thing in the world. Um,
well, I don't belong next to all those
no, you
people in
don't.
suits. So
That's precisely why you're here and why I love to
yeah,
interview you because you are a
thank you.
delegate for the California Democratic Party and
Yep.
you have managed to not lose your mind. So tell me a little
Yeah.
bit about your experience at KDEM and what you saw with the irregularities and the whole Rusty Hicks election, as well as, other things that have happened regarding like Maria Strada.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on all that?
Yeah, so this is my third convention that I've gone to as a delegate and my fourth just attending in general. And this one honestly wasn't as bad as the Eric Bauman one. I mean, that one just had it was rigged all over like there was no disputing the fact that there were irregularities, that there were issues where they broke the rules to bring votes in and bring people in. So that one was way more chaotic versus this one where it was more of a sombering because they didn't cheat. What they did was they just openly showed us how the system works and how it's exploited and where the power is, and they just really reconfirmed that, like, hey, no matter what you do to try and organize as delegates, we're always going to be able to one up you. So it's not that they cheated, but it was just drastically unfair because of the rules that they have in place. Some of the things that I observed, of course, everything regarding Maria Estrada's election is just ridiculous. Like, that entire election should have been scrapped and redone. They shouldn't have had any delegates out there because they can't confirm nor deny that if the ineligible voters weren't allowed to vote, who would have won, because they have no idea how many ineligible voters there were. It's like Maria found a bunch of them, but that's not saying that's all of them.
Right.
So Maria Estrada got screwed over again. But what do you expect? It's what the California Democratic Party loves doing to Maria Estrada because she is going to challenge Anthony Rendon again, and hopefully she'll be able to beat him this time.
Yeah.
As far as the actual convention itself, I want to preference it by saying this. Um, I met with Rusty Hicks several times. Rusty seems like a great guy. He seems like a nice guy. He seems like he is going to be more inclusionary with progressive candidates. I think he's genuine and he's sincere that he wants to help Democrats in rural areas. I think a lot of the stuff talked about he actually does want to do. The problem with Rusty is at the end of the day, we're still going to perpetuate the same system that we wanted to change. We're
Right.
still going to accept money from oil. We're still going to accept money from big tobacco. As you can see, Juul was one of the sponsors of the convention. So we're still going to do business as usual. It's just going to be a lot friendlier with someone who's smiling, who's a lot nicer to you. And but we've allowed the system to continue.
Right.
And even as far as helping progressive candidates, I'm not convinced that he's going to be putting in a ton of efforts toward them. I just think there's going to be more communication, and they'll just offer us more things to keep us quiet. Like, oh, here's some mailers that you actually have to pay for the postage, and here's a bunch of stuff that cost us like $20 that we're just going to give to you, and you can't really use it, but at least we can say we helped you at the end of the day. So
Um, Give me a little bit more insight on how the system is weighted. Like, for instance, you talked about on Facebook how the elected officials get 30 votes or 30 points
yeah,
compared to like a delegate. So, can you kind of give us a little
yeah.
summary on that so people who don't know can figure it out?
Yeah, sure. So basically, the California Democratic Party is broken up into three different types of delegates. You have basically ADEMs, which are people who run to be elected in assembly districts, and they have their slates where you have, 7 women, 7 men,
Mm,
and that's one way. That's about a third of the delegates in the state. Then you have another third of the delegates that are made up of central committee members. So EA has a county party central committee who's given delegates based on how many elected officials that they have in their district and how large the size of their central committee is. Then you have the third category that all, and central committee covers a third as well. Then you have the third category with elected officials and their chosen delegates or pleos. They make up a third of it as well. So here's where it's a lose-lose situation for progressives. Back when we, in all honesty, beat Eric Bauman, where Kimberly Ellis lost by 58 votes, there's Anthony Rendon and Kevin De Leon at the time were each worth 30 votes. So those two guys voted for Eric Bauman, and that's 60 votes right there. So basically, those two were able to flip the election for Eric Bauman.
right.
Um, the way that it works is we have uh, Central Committee and ADEM elections. Well, there's nothing in the rules that state you can't pay people, that you can't bust them in, that you can basically bribe someone for their vote. Like you could bust people in from an old folks home. You could do whatever you want and then give them some huge dinner, which is what happened in a lot of assembly districts. I can tell you, like in our in one of our assembly districts in San Diego County, you had Mike Levin, who had staffers who were part of his actual staff for his House of Representatives team.
Mm-hmm.
They were actually calling people, and so that's a huge violation if you could prove it. But you can't prove if they're doing it in their downtime or they're doing it in their work hours. But we had people saying like, "Oh yeah, we were getting calls from his office and stuff like that." So they were utilizing state resources and federal resources to move these elections. They're utilizing his huge contacts because he has access to everybody's data in his entire district.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really unfair. Like they can run a full on like campaign that would normally cost thousands of dollars. They could run that to win these ADEM seats. So what they do is they win as many ADEMs as they can. Luckily enough, progressives are really good at organizing down there. We still control the actual ADEMs. So like if we say a third is the ADEMs and Kimberly Ellis had 1,100 votes, that shows you the majority of the ADEMs voted for Kimberly Ellis. So it's safe to
Right.
say she won between 60 and 70% of the actual delegates, the grassroots candidates. Then you have central committee members, which a central committee member is somebody who runs for 4 years at the county party level to help Dems get elected in their county. So it's basically the state party, but at the county level. So they run and they're actually on a ballot. So they actually are voted on by the public. So if you're a Democrat in March, we have elections coming up for central committee members like here in San Diego. So if you're a Democratic voter, you can actually vote for people to be in your central committee on your ballot. So those are like public elections. Um, and then you have your pleos where you have your elected officials, and that's where it's just totally corrupt because you could have an assembly member and they get 8 delegates, and they could basically tell everybody you're going to vote like this, and if you don't vote for like this, I'm going to remove you and I'm going to put somebody else in place to do it for you.
Right.
We had people that were on teams with elected assembly members that were purposely trying to get their vote not counted, like making mistakes on their ballots,
Mm-hmm.
because they were so terrified of what happened if they went against the orders of their assembly member. So, keep in mind, if you're involved in the central committee and stuff like that, you probably have aspirations of one day serving in public office or really getting involved. And if you get blackballed from an assembly member, that's huge. Um, it could literally ruin whatever career you're looking for before it even starts. So we had people that were purposely paying thousands of dollars for their hotel, convention fees, all this stuff, purposely trying to get their votes discounted just so they could turn around and say like, "Oh, my bad, I voted for Rusty, but I just messed up on my ballot and they didn't count my vote," which is not fair. So uh, that in essence is what controls the Democratic Party. Those three branches, and it's all in the legislators' favor to stack the Central Committee and stack the ADEMs because they have resources and money and stuff like that to do so.
Right.
That way they can keep as much control as they can.
Wow. So basically, there are rules, and it's all a legalized form of rigging, but it is all legal according to the rules that are established. So, question is, how do we go about the system that is put in favor of the state legislatures, that is put in favor of these elected officials? Because I know when I went to 8051, which did have a recount, I saw people being bussed in. I saw people walking in who weren't even from the area. It was a whole
Mm-hmm.
mess. And so, how do we get through this? How do we fix it?
Yeah, so number one, there needs to be controls in place at the actual ADEM elections. Um, I'm not as concerned about the ADEM elections just because progressives typically can dominate them. I'm more concerned with the central committees, and I'm more concerned with the assembly appointees. And the reason why is because we know we can get a majority of the ADEM elections throughout the state. We've already proven it twice now. But those central committee spots are 4-year terms, so they hold on to those. They hold on to those seats for a long time. And then, of course, with the assembly member appointees and the elected official appointees, those come with big budgets. Like, okay, well, we're appointing you, and we also have millions of dollars in campaign funds. That if we have to drop on central committee and stuff like that to keep our endorsements, we'll do it. So what we really need to focus on, in my opinion, is flipping the central committees.
Okay.
The reason why is because we already have a lot of great candidates running throughout the state. Um, if we're on these campaigns where we're canvassing and advocating for a candidate, have your people run for your central committees as well. So these people that are going door to door, have them run for the central committee. That way, we're getting the message out to as many people as we can, and we could take over the central committee. If we take over the central committee and we control 2/3 of the votes, we can do whatever we want.
Okay.
Um,
Wow. Yeah,
and
that's
keep it
smart.
and keep yeah, and keep in mind, Rusty Hicks is not in a 4-year term right now.
Right. He's in, yeah,
He comes up again in 2021.
in 2021. Yeah.
So here's what can happen. Um, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, because Kimberly asked to give the benefit of
Mm-hmm.
a good job. And I tell you right now, I'm willing to give him a chance because of Gavin Newsom. So I was completely wrong about Gavin Newsom. I was staunch Delaney Easton supporters that there were. When we saw Gavin was going to win it, I was like, that's it. Big Pharma is going to control our state. Private insurance is going to control our state. And Gavin's gone in there and basically said F off to everybody. He's going to do what he feels is right. So I want to believe Rusty's going to do a great job. So if in 2021 we come along and we say like, hey, Rusty said he was going to help progressives and he actually did it, great. It's not that important to flip the seat.
Right.
But if he's going to do what we have a feeling is going to do and just let the status quo continue, then we need to find and recruit a good candidate to run. Which actually, I just said the name Delaney Easton. I would love to see Delaney Easton run for the chair seat. We need to find a good candidate, and we need to focus on flipping all these central committees because the primaries are in March. If we can flip those, and we control 2/3, it's going to force the legislator to work with us now. Now they have to come to the table. They don't just get to do whatever they want.
So let me just kind of like repeat what you said. You said that because there's so much going on, and we have a 2020 presidential election, you can have the people that are working for, like Bernie Sanders, one of those people that is already going door to door, to also be like, hey, by the way, I'm also running for a delegate for the Central Committee, and this is who I am, and here's my platform, and this is why you should vote for me. That way, you're killing two birds with one stone. Same for the candidates that are running for city council. They could also be, if they're like progressive ones, they could also be doing the same thing, correct? That way,
Yeah,
you're not getting in the way of each other.
100%. And the benefit of doing that too is I can tell you 99% of the public doesn't give any shits about what the Central Committee based on name recognition. So if I'm
Yeah,
canvassing for Bernie and I
that's
tell
true.
them, hey, by the way, I'm running for Central Committee, the first question they're going to get is, what the hell is the Central Committee? And I just tell them, look, it's this thing where the Democratic Party puts together that, we try our best to help candidates and stuff like that. And, we try and get Dems elected. They'll be like, okay, yeah, no problem. I'll vote for you, because to them, it's not an important position. They don't realize what it entitles at the state level. So I think that would be the best plan to go by is for all for how much effort is going to be put into Bernie. And I think the last time I checked, he had 1 million registered volunteers in California alone.
Mm-hmm.
If we had some of these people that are going out canvassing, running for their central committees, why on earth between 1 million volunteers we can't flip these central committees is beyond me.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That is
So
strategic and
yeah,
wonderful and such a great idea. And I think more and more people need to be aware, as to more and more of us need to be aware as to what it is, so more of us can run. I know I went to a San Gabriel Valley Alliance meeting with Melissa Michelson, and she started talking about that, trying to give out
mm-hmm.
more information, because that is also another way to control the party. And you're absolutely right, because in that way they are going to see your face, they're going to see your name, and they are going to recognize. So can you just tell me a little bit more of exactly what they do?
Sure.
Is it any different than what an assembly delegate does? Is it more responsibility or less? Because I heard they only meet once a month.
Yeah, so central committee members meet once a month, and they do have also subcommittees and stuff like that. And if you're a member of a subcommittee, you could meet additional times than that. They meet typically once a month, and they vote on resolutions on and stances and positions that the county is going to take. So, for example, if there's a big movement for, we'll just use the border situation. There was a big movement to stop putting kids in cages. Well, our central committee could vote on taking a position on that. And we're going to let all of our elected officials know, our Democratic elected officials know, hey, your central committee has taken this stance, and we want you to join us in no longer allowing kids to be put in cages at the border. So it's a lot of stance taking resolutions, and then most importantly, there's a big budget, and that budget is used to help get Dems elected. So if we're trying to flip school boards and we're trying to flip water boards and we're trying to flip all these smaller offices like Republicans have done, your central committee is going to be a key asset in flipping city councils and everything at the city and county level, because the California Democratic Party does not get involved in any races under an assembly race.
Wow.
So that's why it's so important to have organizing at the county level as well, because there's nobody to do it if you don't have central committees.
Awesome. And we're going to start wrapping this up here for a minute, because I know you got to go, but I just
Yeah.
kind of wanted to know what your opinion on so far the presidential races, and how we can, move towards progressives towards winning California, because last time around it
Yeah.
was a mess with the voting, and the voting places and the provisional ballots.
Yeah. Well, I think Bernie's going to win California. It's a lot of people look at me like I'm crazy because they think Kamala's got this in the bag. But based on volunteer numbers, based on his reception that he gets every single time he comes to California, I think he's by far the most popular person in the state. So I think he's going to have a big turnout in the primary. Uh, there's some other really good progressive candidates. I personally can't wait for Bernie to win and Tulsi Gabbard to be the Secretary of State. I think she would be.
Yeah.
I think Tulsi would be an amazing Secretary of State. There's a lot of, and I just want to get out here and say it. I was going to post something about it, but I just didn't want to get attacked by mods all day long because I didn't have time to respond. And that is this newfound moderate media push going on for Elizabeth Warren.
I know.
And I've noticed it, and basically what's going on is, they're all reporting, oh my God, Elizabeth Warren is surging in the polls. Well, what has she done to surge in the polls? She's not getting more media time. She's not doing anything with her social media. There's no real reason for it. So my conspiracy theory on this is that moderate media is trying to perpetuate and elevate Liz Warren to try and divide the Bernie crowd so we can have an easier path for Joe Biden to swim on through there. Because we know, based on the fact that Elizabeth Warren's numbers and Bernie's numbers, if Elizabeth Warren does drop out and throw her support behind Bernie, Bernie's almost 4 points ahead of Joe Biden easily.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not including Tulsi's people, and that's not including Kamala's people. I have a feeling that as these candidates start dropping, the support's going to go to Bernie. It's already been working. As Biden has been dropping in the polls, Bernie's actually been the one to benefit from it, but they're reporting that Buttigieg and Warren are the ones that benefiting while ignoring Bernie. So I just don't want fellow progressives. Yeah, Elizabeth Warren is great. She's cool and all that. She's probably the most outspoken congressional person that we have against the big banks, and we all know how much I have a disdain and hate for the big banks. But at the end of the day, she's like a watered down Diet Coke version of Bernie Sanders. And I don't want everyone to be caught in this media trap where we start dividing Bernie supporters amongst Elizabeth Warren supporters when we all know at the end of the day it's going to be Bernie making it. So don't fall into these trap polls that are. I saw a poll the other day that said scientists said there was a 99% chance Hillary was going to win. And I'm just like, oh, so you're saying there's a chance, like in Dumb and Dumber. So don't fall for these push polls that are trying to elevate, the most moderate of the progressives, the center progressive, which is Elizabeth Warren, because all they're trying to do is take away from Bernie, because they know there's not a Bernie supporter on the planet that's going to back Joe Biden. So they're trying to divide him up and keep Biden's numbers at where they at. So that's really it with the presidential. I think it's Bernie's time. I think even with whatever the DNC tries to do, I think he just has too much popularity that they can't even rig it this time.
Awesome, James. And thanks for coming on. And we'll be talking to you again as time nears and we can kind of push the central committee thing, because I think that's a really wonderful idea. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us, and have a rest of your day. Have a good rest of your day.
Love you, fam. Shout out to my boy Pasta and my boy Jonathan, who's
Whoop, whoop.
mixing all the editing right
Johnny
now for
Pesto and Pasta.
Yep, everybody. So.
All right, James. Love you.
All
Combo
right,
out.
see you. Take it easy.